let's get the meeting started with Chris Vaughan and the sky this year.
Thank you, Paul. Yeah, I thought it was a great opportunity to have a meeting so early or so young in the year that would cover the lookout to the whole year. So I'm coming to you from Thornhill, Ontario, not too far from Paul. I'm just a few minutes south of the David Dunlap Observatory, actually. So I'm an astronomy mecca, if you like. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run through a number of things that are be coming up in the coming year. I'm going to go rather quickly, but I'll leave, when I get into Stellarium, I'll leave the time and date window shown on the Stellarium screen. So you'll be able to, watch this later on YouTube, pause the video and make your notes if I go a little bit too fast for you. So what I'll do is I'll just run through a couple of highlights. I like to actually share some resources in case you want some additional information about what's going on this year. So the latest issue of Sky News magazine, the January-February issue, has a nice story by Brian Ventrudo about the 10 top events for the year. Nicole Morlaro of CBC recently posted a story called Please Do Look Up, and I've got the link there for that article. And then Alan Dyer, another rascal who lives out west, he also posted recently his best sky sites of 2022. One of the things I liked about Alan's blog is that he covered things like noctilucent clouds and zodiacal light, another phenomenon that we normally don't think of. But when you've got great skies like he does, then you can take advantage of some of those. And of course, I cover a number of the events as we go during the week at my skylights, if anyone's interested. We normally during the Sky This Month talk a little bit about what the daytime nighttime balance looks like. So I'll just quickly cover the fact that January 5th today, we've got sunset at 4:55 and full darkness after the end of astronomical twilight starts at 6:38. So if you're an imager and you want a nice dark sky, you've got about 11 and a half hours of imaging time. By the time of our next RAN meeting on Feb 2, that'll be, of course, delayed a little bit as the spring starts to get arriving, and you'll be down to 10 hours and 45 minutes of imaging time a month from now. In terms of the moon phenomenon, if you're interested in moonless skies, dark nights without the moon around, the best time for that in this next coming period of time would be the 25th of January to around the 2nd at Fairbury. So third quarter to about a couple of days after new moon. If you want to look at the moon itself, though, your best viewing time will be this week, starting tonight and running to about the 15th of the month as the moon waxes fuller in the evening sky. I want to point out that on Sunday night, January 9th, we've got a lunar X event scheduled to happen. The X is a phenomenon that appears when a certain group of crater rims get illuminated by the sun from a particular angle. And that happens for 2 or 3 hours a number of times a year at the first quarter moon. So that'll be on Sunday, January 9th. It'll start to form around 10 p.m., peak around 11, and then start tapering off. So you've got a window of a couple of hours. I can show you where that is in the sky here in a little bit. Now, a little bit of bad news is that this will probably be, I believe it's the only lunar X event visible from Toronto in an evening sky, a dark sky, for all of 2022. So you do want to hope for clear skies and get out there and take a look. The night of the lunar X, you can also look for a little V on the moon, which is a little bit north of the lunar equator. And some people have claimed to see other patterns like L's and E's, and of course the craters are round, so you can make yourself some LOVE on the moon if you want to as well. A really good resource for checking out things like lunar X's is the NASA Dial-A-Moon page. It gets updated every year, so this year the 2022 edition is up. And what you can do is click on, I'll just bring it up here so you can see it. So this is the Dial-A-Moon page, and what you can put in is the month, the day, and the universal time. And in hour increments, it'll give you what the moon looks like on that hour of the day of the year. So here we have January 10th at 3:0300 UT. And if you subtract 4 hours for Toronto time, then that's 11 p.m. Toronto time. You can see the lunar X is down here. If I advance this, go back an hour, you can see the X is a little less apparent and so on. So you can play with that. and work out exactly when the X is most visible. And if you click on any of these images, then it'll download a high-res image that you can then, with annotations that'll show you the craters and things like that. So let me head back here to Stellarium. There we go. All right, let's get out of here and let's go into Stellarium. So a couple of highlights over the next couple of weeks before I head out into the larger year. We've got the greatest elongation of Mercury happening on Friday this week. So here's Mercury. So Mercury will be at its greatest angle east of the sun on Friday, which is the 7th. And that'll be your peak visibility for Mercury. And within a few days after that, you can see we've got a line here of Jupiter, Saturn, Mercury, and Venus just disappeared below the horizon here a few moments ago. I'll just wind it back so you can pick up. There's Venus. So you need an unobstructed horizon to pick up Venus. And right around the 12th, 11th or 12th of the month or next week, we're going to get Mercury and Saturn within about 3.5 degrees of one another. So they'll be able to share a binocular's field of view. The other cool thing is going back to Venus here for a second. So Venus is in the process of sliding in between the Earth and the sun right now. So let me just bring this up so you can see him. Let's go back a couple of days here. And on around the 11th or 12th of the month, Venus will be at its inferior solar conjunction, but it'll also be the closest that any planet has been to Earth in 100 years. At that time, Venus is going to be 5 degrees north of the sun, north of the ecliptic. And so it is possible for the sun to be fully down, fully set, and be able to see Venus. It's a very tricky prospect to be able to look at it when it's in that position. We don't recommend people mess around too much when the sun is nearby with telescopes. But if you're a skilled observer and you're used to doing that kind of thing, that might be a curious thing that you can check out. All right, now for the bad news. The bad news is that after we lose, so let me just bring this down here. So each night we're losing, Mercury's going to start dropping sunward after its greatest elongation. Then we're going to get Saturn and Jupiter carried sunward a little bit every night. And by the time we get towards the end of January, we're basically closing the window on our telescope observing of Saturn and Jupiter. And within another couple of weeks, we'll basically lose them into the western twilight. And then unfortunately, that means no bright planets in the evening sky until Saturn returns, starts rising before midnight at the end of July, sort of the July-August timeframe. So if you've got a new telescope for Christmas, you're going to have to get really friendly with the moon for the first half of the year. Get working on your Messier objects and learning some of your deep sky objects, your double stars and things like that, because it's going to be a while before we get the planets coming back. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use the Stellarium bookmark tool. The bookmark tool is really handy. It's been taken off the latest versions of Stellarium, but if you wind back a couple of versions to previous one, you can use it. What I need to do is here, set this up and just start running through some of the events here. So here's that lunar X I was talking about. So it's going to be on Sunday night. The moon will be nice and high in the sky at the peak of the lunar X and then sort of descending into the west. Then in January 17th, we've got the smallest full moon of 2022. What I'll do is I'll just bring up the markings here to show you a ring around the moon. There we go. So you can see there's an orange ring that I've got around the moon. It's not quite filling that ring. So that ring is 30 arc minutes in diameter. That's the typical size of the full moon. But because this one's a little bit happening near apogee, the moon's farthest distance from the Earth, then it's a little bit smaller. Then on March 19th, another lunar event to look forward to this year is the full moon occulting the star Porrima. That's in Virgo. I'll just wind back so you can get an idea of the context here. So that's the eastern sky. And this is going to happen around midnight, just sort of after midnight. And what's cool about Porrima is that it's a double star. And so you can actually watch the moon hover over each of the two stars, and then wait till the star reappears on the other side of the moon and see the two components of that double star wink into view. We have another occultation of another star. This is Dishaba. Dishaba is one of the claw stars of Scorpius. That's going to happen in April 19th. And again, if I just zoom in on Dishaba, you can see it is also a double star, and you can then perform the same sort of event again. And then we have one more event with Dishaba again, and that happens in the evening about 10 p.m. on June the 12th. So you can keep your eye out for that. All right, what else have we got here? We've got some supermoons coming up. So in June, we've got the largest, or one of the largest moons of the year. So now you can see that orange circle I was talking about is much smaller than the apparent diameter of the moon. So this full moon is happening near lunar perigee, when the moon is closer to the Earth, so it looms larger in the sky. But the absolute largest moon of the year will happen a month later in July. And this one is going to be just 1/10 of an arc minute bigger. So they're almost equal, but this one's just slightly edges out the other. All right. So let's talk about, and we've got a couple of occultations here. Let's see, we've got, on October 24th, we've got the moon occulting the planet Mercury. This will be in daytime for us. So again, the sun will be in the sky, so you want to exercise very extreme caution. And the moon will be very young, so it'll be really tricky to see the moon without help. You're going to want to go to telescope or something aligned previously in order to find these objects happening. But the best of all, I say for last in terms of the moon, and that's when Mars is at opposition in December this year. The full moon will occult Mars. So that's going to happen. This is the view from Toronto. So around 10:27 or so p.m., we'll get Mars disappearing behind the brighter leading edge of the moon, and then it'll reemerge. I think it's around an hour later. You can catch it coming out of the other side. So that'll be a really cool event. Hopefully we're able to get it together and have some public viewing and some star parties to celebrate something like that, especially when Mars is going to be so good at the end of the year. All right, let's talk a little bit about eclipses. We've got two sets of eclipses this year. We've got two total lunar eclipses. One and almost one of another is visible from Toronto, so we'll call that 1.5 visible from Toronto, and two partial solar eclipses that are not visible from Toronto. So let me bring these up for you. So we've got, let's see, partial solar eclipse is going to be visible from Chile, or the southern hemisphere. I'll just get rid of the horizon here so you can see how this will look. So this will be a deep partial eclipse. About 54% of the sun will get covered at maximum. But again, and that'll be for live stream, people that like to watch solar eclipses on live streams, those will be streamed in the afternoon hours for Toronto. So that's kind of a convenient time. And then 2 hours later, that's April 30th. 2 weeks later, because eclipses always happen in pairs, separated by 2 weeks, we have a total lunar eclipse visible from Toronto. So this view is from Toronto. And I'm just going to show you the Earth's shadow. So the eclipse will start around 10:30 p.m. The moon will be about, let's see here, about 16 degrees above the horizon, so not terribly high above the horizon. And then it'll proceed to dip into the Earth's shadow. It's a nice deep eclipse. You will notice towards the middle of the eclipse, the deepest part of the eclipse, that the sort of southern portion or the lower right portion of the moon will be less dark than the upper left portion of the moon. You're going to want to look for things like, let's see, I think some of the other deep sky objects may come into view once the moon becomes darkened during that eclipse. So that'll last beyond midnight, and by the time we get to the end of the eclipse, we'll be approaching 2 a.m. And unfortunately, the moon won't get much more than about 24 degrees above the horizon for any of that event, but it'll be a great one for everybody in Toronto to look at. Then we've got the next partial solar eclipse. That's going to be visible mainly in places like Svalbard in the far north. And that one's going to be on the 25th of October. And that'll be a live stream during the pre-dawn hours for us here in the city of Toronto. But then 2 weeks later, we get a total lunar eclipse again, and this lunar eclipse will be more favored by folks that live in the West Coast. So the people in Toronto and the eastern half of Canada will be able to see the early stages of this eclipse. This is going to be around here. This is a pre-dawn eclipse, and then by the time we get to the end of the eclipse, we'll have sunrise coming up. All right, so let's put these bookmarks away, and we bring up my planet bookmarks. All right. So as I said, the evening sky is going to be devoid of planets, unfortunately. But let me get this back to this evening. Here we go. But we can start looking for some really cool, fun things happening in the pre-dawn sky. I mentioned that the elongation of Mercury is going to happen on Friday in January. The next good elongation of Mercury is going to happen in April. So let me just bring that one up here. So we've got one happening on April 29th. This one is going to be occurring with Mercury very close to the Pleiades. Now, of course, they'll be low in the sky. There'll be lots of air masses for us to look through, but your binoculars may be able to pick up some of the stars of the Pleiades for this elongation. So that'll be a cool one to look for. The next really good one is going to be in October, when we've got an excellent apparition of Mercury in October. So that's around early October, October 8th or so. Our best appearances for Venus this year. So Venus is disappearing from the evening sky, but it's going to be entering the morning sky before long. And it's going to be at its peak around March 20th or so. So this is March 20th, and it'll be near Mars and Saturn at that time. So let's look at the morning sky here. Let's come back a couple of weeks here, and we'll just sort of run through a little bit about what's going to happen in the morning sky. So once we get Venus in the morning sky, we've got Mars already there. So you can see Mars is sitting here, and I'll just center here on Mars. Then that sets up a sequence of really cool encounters. So by the time we get into early February or so, we're going to be having the planets Mercury, Venus, and Mars gathering together. Mars and Venus will actually be at their closest to one another on February 2nd, if you want to make a note of that. When we get to February 27th, then we've got a really pretty sight of Venus, Mars, and the old crescent moon parked above the southeastern horizon. So that'll be a fun one to look for. A couple of weeks later, we're going to get to March 14th, and that'll be the time when we have Venus closest to Mars plus Saturn in the view. Saturn will be coming up. And then head on a little bit further, get to another photo op around the 23rd when we've got the moon coming into view here. And let me just wind back an hour or so and make this better. Put this here. And then we start getting some really neat photo ops and some close encounters. So here we go, advancing into early April. We've got Saturn and Mars telescope close to one another for a few mornings, depending on your sort of eyepiece field of view. You can fit them together. This is about a 30-degree or 30 arc minute field of view. So your telescope will be a little bit bigger than this, a bit healthier than that. So for several days, they'll be visible together in the telescope together. Let me wind this back. And then as we head forward, then we're going to have Jupiter coming into view. And by the time we get to around April 30th, then we're going to have Jupiter and Venus encountering each other telescope close. That's around the April 30th to May 1st, sort of the pre-dawn. And then finally on, just pick up Jupiter here and wind forward a little bit more. Again, if you don't mind setting the alarm, then we're going to get Jupiter and Mars telescope close themselves at the end of May, May 29th. So those are some great opportunities for you to catch some objects together. In terms of meteor showers, so everybody looks forward to the meteor showers every year, and we have a sort of a boo-hoo or woo-hoo scenario coming up in terms of meteor showers. So the first meteor shower of the year that we usually look forward to here is the April Lyrids meteor shower. So let's find the Lyrids here. Here we go. So the meteor shower is best before dawn when the sky overhead is heading into the debris field that's producing the shower. Unfortunately, there'll be a waning gibbous moon in the sky during the peak of the shower, so that's not going to be a great opportunity for us. Then on May 5th, 6th, we have the Eta Aquarids meteor shower, and this one here's the radiant here. This one's going to be a much better opportunity. We'll have the crescent moon will set after about 1 a.m., leaving the pre-dawn sky nice and dark for meteors. Then on July 29th, we've got the Southern Delta Aquarids meteor shower. This one here. Where are we here? Oh, over here. There we go. This one's going to be a good one. There'll be good moon conditions, so moonless skies, but this shower typically only produces about 20 meteors at the peak. Everybody looks forward to the Perseid meteor shower every year. Unfortunately, the Perseid meteor shower, which peaks around August 12th, 13th, that's going to be a full moon. So that one's not going to be a good shower for us this year. Next good shower for us in 2022 is in October. That's the Orionids. Again, that's only about a couple of dozen meteors per hour at the peak, but that will be a fairly moonless sky, so that's one you can look for. And by the way, in terms of the Perseid meteor shower, even though there'll be a full moon on the peak night, my recommendation would be to head out a few nights earlier, and you can actually catch the sky before the moon is bothering you too much, so you can get some of those meteors. Finally, I'm just going to close with a couple of comets. Now, of course, we had our comet Leonard, which has actually panned out well for people in the southern hemisphere, but hasn't turned out too well for us in the north. But we don't know what comet might be discovered between now and the end of the year, but we do know that a couple of old returning comets are expected to get reasonably bright near perigee when they're closest to the Earth. So comet C2017 K2 Pan-STARRS is predicted to reach magnitude 6 when it's at perigee around July 6th or so. And that'll be nicely positioned in the evening sky in the center of Ophiuchus. And then a little bit earlier than that, we've got comet C2021-03 Pan-STARRS, which will reach perigee around May 7th. That'll be after its perihelion. And so it'll join the sky. It won't be visible for long. You can see that once the sunset comes down, we've only got a brief opportunity to take a look. So that's basically it for astronomy. Of course, we're looking forward to James Webb Science coming up in this year. The Vera Rubin Observatory is scheduled to have first light sometime in 2022. So fingers crossed that we have a good year with lots of clear skies.
Thank you very much, Chris. Lots of good stuff to look forward in 2022. Emma, do we have any questions for Chris?
We do. First of all, we have a viewer from southeastern Brazil. Will the lunar eclipse in Chile be visible in that part of Brazil too?
No, I don't think so. Let me see if I can bring up the map for the eclipse. Okay, open hyperlink. So if you go to eclipsewise.com, you can look up the different eclipses and you can get the visibility maps. So the eclipse that we get on May 22nd, May 16th, 2022, yes, it will be visible in the southern hemisphere.
Thank you. Does dial-a-moon show lunar libration for particular times accurately?
Oh, yes. Yeah, so it'll rotate the moon to give us the view as seen from Earth at any hour of the year.
Perfect.
And not only that, but it actually has videos where it'll actually run through the libration in the different phases of the year. So it's a great page to explore.
Cool. Thank you. That's all the questions.
Thank you, Emma. I just have a quick comment or question for Chris. In terms of lunar eclipses, we hear the term blood moon being used so much, especially in the media, and it's driving me crazy. Am I the only one, or, I mean, blood moon really doesn't mean anything, right?
Well, it's dramatic, so it drives clicks. It drives, it gets a little buzz going. Really, it's sunset colored moon, isn't it? I mean, that's what's causing the red color, is the fact that any light that gets to the full moon during eclipse is coming over the Earth's horizon, where it's typically reddened by the sort of sunset colors that we get.
Right.
So
it's a media phenomenon, pop culture thing.
Super moon, blood moon.
Yeah. All right, very good. Thanks again, Chris, for doing the sky this year. That was a great idea.
No problem.